Hello, everybody, and welcome to Zenatta Consulting's monthly full product tutorials. This one is going to be on Zoho Books, and I am Brett Martin from Zenatta Consulting, and with me I have John Oda, who is our Director of Finance. And John, this is going to be the first time that we've actually done a finance webinar with you, specifically, or a finance full product overview with you, which is going to be great because Tyler and I have always felt blindly through this thing in the past. And we haven't updated this one on books since May of 2022. Not that there's been a lot of changes, but I would say there's been enough changes that's significant that we probably need to do another one of these. And this tended to be one of our more popular videos we've done. I think we've got over 70,000 views on this. So here is an update of that. With that, let's get right on into the agenda. All righty. So we are going to do a full application overview. We're going to take you through all of the settings, all of the menu items, everything that you want to know inside there. Then I'm going to actually dive deep into the settings and chart of accounts. Then John is going to wrap it up with a sales process and purchase process. This is all exciting stuff. Finance doesn't get more exciting than this, does it, John? It's really
Yeah. Zoho Books team has done a great job having some incremental updates. A lot of little things that are just going to make your life easier. So say kudos to the Zoho Books team there.
Yeah, fantastic. So with that, guys, let's get right on into it and do an application overview.
So starting off here, when you enter into Zoho Books, it's going to drop you into the homepage. It's really nice. They give you a overview here of some different reports. These are some KPIs that you can kind of check on the health of your company. We got receivables, payables, cash flow. A lot of these are reports that you can also pull from the report module, or if you want to go into a little bit deeper and just kind of get into something that's more in depth than just these kind of overviews, you can also utilize the integration into Zoho Analytics. Some other nice things here are the getting started. It's going to help you kind of set up your books account, as well as the recent updates and announcements. They just give you a nice homepage here to kind of let you know what's going on with Zoho Books and all the new features that they've been adding to it as we go here. Starting off here on the left is items. Inside of items, you're able to look and create any type of service or items that you're selling in your company. Another handy feature here is the item groups. These item groups allow you to create, variants of the product that you're selling. So if you have t-shirts, as the example is here, if you sell them in red, yellow, and blue, this helps you create that. Another thing here you'll find is the composite items. If you're bundling things together and selling them, then you can create composite items. The really nice thing here is it's going to take that cost of each of those items, create a cost price for you, and it really allows you to kind of control your inventory. The other thing here in this is the price list. If you have different price lists for different vendors, MSRP versus dealer prices, you can go in here and set up and tweak item prices for specific contacts. A lot of this is kind of part of the integration as well with Zoho Inventory. So you can use Zoho Books standalone, or if you wanted to get into more of an inventory control, you're able to do that in its sister application, Zoho Inventory. Next up here, we have the banking section. Here, you're able to look at all your bank accounts and see how they're doing. Again, there's an overview here. Some new things that they've added when we add a bank and credit card. Now, when you connect them, you are able to use a couple different platforms now. So before, it used to only be Yodlee. Last year, they introduced Plaid, and they've always had a token as well. So I know that each one has its pluses and minuses. Some banks don't use Plaid. Some banks don't use Yodlee. So depending on which bank you are using, you can kind of come in here and see the best platform that you want to use to connect your bank accounts. This will bring in your bank feeds. And once you have a bank feed in here.
Now, I was going to say, John, it's really kind of interesting on the Plaid and Yodlee thing. I wanted to jump in here because big changes with that this year, right? It was just Yodlee, and I'm glad you corrected me on the pronunciation of that. I've been saying yodel or yodele or, now it's Yodlee. But when it was just Yodlee, now it's Plaid, and you actually can mix and match, right?
Yeah,
as you're doing
depending
your
on which
accounts?
bank you have, if you have a credit card from a small credit union and it only has the Yodlee integration, you can use Yodlee for that one. And say you're using a bigger bank like Chase, you can connect Chase using the Plaid integration.
It's a whole different process from before. It used to be you would kind of search for your bank, you could do it. Now you're kind of depending on which one you're using, it's a whole different interface to add that account. It's kind of a bit of a whole different thing. I think maybe you're going to show that here in a little bit, but I just want to jump in and point that out because that is a significant change in the last years. You now have both of the major bank integration, bank feed aggregators out there that you can choose from. So big update.
Yeah, really great. Once you have that bank feed going, it's going to pull in the amount in the bank versus the amount in Zoho Books. This gives you a nice kind of check to make sure that, hey, everything is good. One thing that I do suggest doing outside of just relying on the bank feed to tell you if you are in balance or not is to go ahead and reconcile your bank accounts. By doing this, you're going to track of all the transactions that you have, whether or not you have checks that are waiting to clear. If you've ever created any duplicates in your system, you'll be able to see those right away and take care of them. We're actually have a video with more in-depth training on this on our YouTube channel. So if you wanted to go over there, you can see it. And we'll also be releasing a blog this week in regards to reconciling and categorizing bank transactions and the importance there. Like Brett mentioned with the bank feeds here, depending on which service you're using, it's going to look a little bit different on how you're going to add those bank accounts. And as he mentioned with Plaid, you're going to kind of log into Plaid just by using your phone number. It's going to look up and see if you have any bank accounts associated with that, and then check that way. With the Yodlee integration, this is kind of look like what you've seen before. You're going to search your bank, you're going to click on that, and then kind of log in that way. So a little bit of a different process either way there, but very simple to set up. We actually have a video as well on setting up the Yodlee integration, and we will be updating the bank feed how-to video to include the Plaid integration as well. Up next, we have our sales side of things. Starting off, customers. You can add your customers in here. Have our estimates, retainers, sales orders, packages, shipments, invoices, payments, recurring invoices, sales return, and credit notes. We'll be going into this in a little bit more detail in the end of the video with the sales order process. Some things here that you can use are the customer module here. The nice thing with this is it gives a nice one-stop shop to kind of take a view on what the business you're doing with that customer. You can leave comments so you can communicate with your team members. You're going to keep track of any emails you've sent to that client, as well as you can keep an eye on all the different transactions that you're watching for them. After that, we also have the purchase module. This is going to be kind of a mirror of the sales side, but with your purchases. In here, just like the customer on the vendor level, you are able to track, shipping addresses, billing addresses, whether or not you are wanting to track them for 1099 payments. It's really nice. This integration integrates directly in with your CRM. So you're able to pull in contact people that you have on those accounts, as well as addresses that you may have, and keep track of your contacts and your vendors and accounts. Again, we'll be going into a little bit more detail of the expenses, recurring expenses, purchase ordering, bills, payments made, recurring bills, and vendor credits here. Next up, we do have a strangely named time tracking portion of this. This is a way to keep track of not only timesheets, but projects you have in the system. This projects tab here can be integrated with Zoho projects. Then that way you'd be able to keep track of the projects across both applications. The information is pushed back and forth. It makes it really easy to keep track of your projects and then be able to bill against them using Zoho Books. Next up here, we have the accountants section. In here, you're able to make your manual journal entries, bulk update transactions. So if you have created a new chart of accounts account and you wanted to pull, from just having your generic auto expense and break that out into auto repairs and maintenance and fuel, you can use this filter and bulk update option to actually select the different expenses based off of what the main level account is and convert those into the new account that you've created. Or if you've miscategorized something and you need to go back and make changes, this is a really great way to easily pull those transactions and move them to where they need to be. Chart of accounts, Brett's going to go into this a little bit later here. Another really powerful feature that not too many of our clients use is the budget. Budgets here, you're able to create a budget. What's really nice as well is you can choose the different income accounts and expense accounts that you want to watch on your budget. And with the expense accounts, you can even go in as far as to track based off the different tags you have. So if you have, two different departments, then you are tracking their salaries and wages, and they're tagging the expense to the specific reporting tag, you're able to budget based off of that. So very powerful tool. Like I said, not a lot of our clients use it, but it is available. Next thing as well is the transaction locking. It's really for kind of your accountant or CPA at the end of the year or end of the quarter. If you don't want anyone to go back and make any changes to past data, you're able to lock those transactions. Next up here, we have the reporting. Zoho has all of your basic accounting reports that you need. Your profit loss, balance sheet, your AR aging, AP aging. Some nice reports that they have in here are when you're tracking those 1099s on your vendors, you're able to create a report at the end of the year, see those, easily get information to prepare your 1099s. Zoho actually has a couple integrations for reporting 1099s, as well as these reports, which you can use to import into any 1099 tracking software. So it makes it really easy. End of the year, just send this report over to your CPA and they can help you file your 1099 MISCs and NECs here. Some other reports here, it's going to give you some generic reports on inventory. The nice thing too is that Zoho Books, with the analytics integration, you are able to come in here and basically take any of those reports and customize them to show whatever information you want to see. If you want to create a KPI on, sales by salesperson versus targets, we're able to create that in analytics. This will give you a generic kind of information, and we can just really refine that over in Zoho Analytics. Next up here is the document section. This is pretty cool. They have ability for your bank to automatically email you your bank statements. So when we were doing those aforementioned bank reconciliations, you would have that information already in here, saved in a folder. Another one too is the file auto scan here. They do have an option. It is an additional fee to have it OCR and read your bills, invoices that you have that come in and kind of help create those. They do allow you some tests here to see how that works. And if you like to use that, then it makes it really simple here. Another handy feature in all of the sections here are the ability to attach documents to your items here. So if you have a receipt for an expense, or if you have a invoice you want to scan in so you have that hard copy in your system, you're able to save that to the actual transactional level, which is really nice. Another thing with expense is the expense application. It's great, integrates directly into books here, and it kind of allows your employees to code the expenses themselves to the different expense accounts. It makes it really easy when you have a lot of employees using a corporate card and you don't necessarily know what they're spending on, and you want them to create the reports there to send over. Next up, we're going to go over settings with Brett, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hey, John, thank you so much. So as John has already covered everything running down the left-hand side here, there is a little settings icon in the upper right-hand corner. And if you click on that, that is going to take you to the settings in Zoho Books. Now, this is completely changed. I think sometimes, change is good. This is one of those things where I think most people were so used to clicking on the settings, getting a beautiful drop down. Everything's been kind of moved around. So it really is fine. It's just, you might have to look around a little more for something that you were able to find maybe a little easier in the past. So it's all spread out on this page here. So we'll start up here at the top with organization. This is really all of your basic information. You can go ahead and put in your company profile, As you can see, we've got the Azaz World Domination Inc. If you don't know, Azaz is Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho, and that's a show that airs every Wednesday where we answer all of your questions about Zoho. Little plug while doing a little product overview. You like that? So you fill in all your organization information, your address, all those kind of things, email addresses. You can set up your warehouses as well, whether you've got multiple warehouses or a single warehouse. If you're using Zoho Inventory, you're going to want to integrate that over to here as well. And then you can go into your branding. How do you want the overall look and feel? These are all just basic things. You can do a custom domain. You do not have to use, books.zoho.com. You can have your own organization in here. So you can go to books.zenatta.com or whatever your organization needs, and you can map your custom domain in there as well. You can set up the currencies you're going to use. You actually can disable your currency exchange feeds, or you can add custom feeds. You can put new currencies in. You can set those in. There's a whole bunch of things you can do around currencies. We probably should do an entire another segment just on currencies as well. You can set up your overall approval process where you enable sales approvals. So this is where you're reviewing sales transactions before they're sent out. You can also do that around purchase approvals, and you can do that around inventory approvals. So this is where you're going to go in and you're going to set all of those up. Opening balances. This is a big one that they have moved from the homepage, but basically, it may be that once you've migrated over and you've got things set up, there are some balances that you're going to need to go in. You're going to need to make the adjustments. You're going to need to do them on this back end. This is where you can do all of that, and you can add a new account in, basically set up your opening balances and take care of all of that as well. And then you get at the very end, you can go ahead and manage your overall subscription. John, you were going to say something about that?
No, actually, Brett, back in the approvals, one of the new things that they added this year is the inventory approval. So if you're going in and making inventory adjustments, you can now have someone come in and have to approve those. So if someone in the warehouse said that, you lost 100 widgets to a fire, then someone else comes in and says no, that's not true. That was theft. You can have someone go in and approve and fix those adjustments.
Fantastic. Makes it super easy. Very nice. All right, now, as you'll notice, when we originally clicked on the settings, we have all of these kind of spread out all over the page. But once you click into any of the settings, it's actually going to move that entire settings menu over to the side here then you can expand it. This is more like the original settings menu was. So the next one kind of running down here is tax and compliance. You have taxes. This is going to be Avalara, of course. So if you are liable to collect sales tax, you can do it manually, but it's highly, highly recommended that you use this product called Avalara. That is going to handle all of the various tax authorities for you, the various taxes in the regions. And as you know, depending on where you are in the United States, the sales tax that needs to be collected can vary from one side of the street to the other. It depends on what city you're in, what county you're in, and all of those kind of things. So kind of good to enable that. I mean, John, we do recommend across the board that it's Avalara pretty much exclusively when setting if you're going to be doing any kind of sales tax.
I mostly recommend it if you're in multi-state because it's going to know everything there. If you're a single state that has a one tax rate, usually pretty simple to just use the built-in sales tax collection here. One thing to note is there are a couple settings that the Avalara integration will lock down. So you're going to want to go in and kind of review that, connect to Avalara, and check the documentation there to see if anything that you're doing currently will be kind of changed by the Avalara setting.
Fantastic. Yeah, and there are some states where it is a flat sales tax that isn't based on county, city, or whatever, and you can get away with it there. That kind of really wouldn't work in California, but you could manually put them in. Maybe you're only selling in a few small areas. You can get away with it there. And then moving into your preferences, you've got the overall general preferences. What do you want? What modules do you want to enable? You can go ahead and set all those up. You can go ahead and then on the customer and vendor side, are you going to allow duplicate customers and vendor display name? Is your default customer type a business? Is it an individual? Are you going to set up credit limits? And then basically address formatting, basic formatting around this. You also have the opportunity of field customization. So if you want to do custom fields, this is where you will go in and you can create new custom fields. You can also, here's where you're going to create your custom buttons, and you create a new button there. And you can manage all of your related lists, which are the things that sit over on the left-hand side. This is all relatively new in books over the last 18 months where you can have these things. So something to take a look at. And I think we actually have an entire separate tutorial on these as well. And then you've got your accountant. This is where you can actually set up what your accountant can see and how you're going to go ahead and manage that. John, can you talk to a little bit about this section, the accountant section?
Of course. Yeah. So looking here with your vendor advances, if you have different names for the accounts you want to see those vendor advances sit in. So these are your credits, or if you prepay for any items, you can change which asset account those prepaid expenses are going into. Some people like to see, prepaid expenses or deferred expenses. Just depends on how you want to say it and track it that way. Right below, on the opposite end of things, is your customer advances. So these are prepayments from customers. Again, if you want to change the name from unearned revenue to deferred revenue, depending on how your CPA wants to see it or how you're used to seeing it on your financial statement, you can go ahead and set up those accounts here and decide where they want.
And then you've got your custom journal fields where you could add your custom fields to that, and your chart of accounts custom fields. And I'll be talking about chart of accounts here in a little bit. We can kind of talk about what that would look like as well. And then moving on to projects. This is, again, some field customization for projects inside of Zoho Books, not related to Zoho projects. Also, you've got your timesheet customization in here as well, because in Zoho Books, you actually can go ahead and collect timesheets for people as well. And your customization of your customer portal. So Zoho Books does have a customer portal where people can come in and they can view their invoices and other things that they may wish to view inside of Zoho Books. And you can set up the overall customization as your portal as well for your customers. And again, the same exact thing for your vendors, where they can come in and view the things that they would need to view as well, such as POs and other things. They can go ahead and look in there, and you've got your vendor portal as well. Again, in settings now, more customization around items, how you want to configure your overall items. You can set your decimal points. You can set your measurement. Is it going to be inches or going to be the metric system? Again, weight, is it going to be pounds or the metric system? Are you using SKUs, ISBNs, UPCs? You're really going to set up your overall, all of the things you'll want around how you're going to handle your items. Again, you can do field customization, custom buttons, related lists, all of this handled back here on the sales. So you can get very granular with what you are doing there as well. On the sales side, this is where you're going to kind of get into your customization on, whether it's estimates, invoices, sales order. Do you have custom fields you want to add? Buttons, validation rules, all of that is handled on the back end as well. Again, we have separate videos on a lot of these that you may want to go look at. If you actually go into Zenatta.com, click on the resource guide, click on Zoho Books, you'll see all of the different separate videos. And we're trying to cover each and every one of these as we've gone through. So if you don't see it there, send us a request and we will get into that as well. And this gets a little redundant. It's pretty much the same for retainer invoices, the same for sales invoices, a little more on sales orders, because you can set up your sales order cycles as well in here. You can also have sales integrations with various channels on your sales orders. So Zoho's done a really, really nice job integrating with Fulfilled by Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify. You can go ahead and do your integrations with those. You can also set up your packages. So on the inventory side, you can add custom fields for your packages here if you're going to have that. Same on shipments. Do you want to have field customization? Do you want to set up notifications? On the invoice side, again, this is very similar to sales orders and estimates. It's really setting up any type of customization you will want to do on that. Out of the box, it comes pretty well configured. But again, down here, you can get more granular. Same thing with recurring invoices. Again, are you going to allow recurring invoices? Are you going to create invoices as drafts? Do you want to create and send invoices? So what do you want to do out of the gate? When a recurring invoice is created, is it a draft? You get to review it? Or do you go in here and you just say, man, go ahead and create and send it, and then you can choose the various settings you want to apply with that. And again, on payments received, only thing you'll want to have there are some custom fields and some custom buttons. Same thing on credit notes, custom fields, custom buttons, related lists. You also have the choice in here. You have cost price preferences. Are you going to allow users to override the price? Are you going to have credit notes? Are you going to do it by QR code? Are you going to allow record locking on credit notes? John talked a little bit earlier about record locking. That is where all of these things are set up. And I haven't mentioned it, but almost every single one of these allows you to put in your own terms and conditions and your own customer notes. Those will go across the board and are carried over to all of the various templates. All right, and then you've got your delivery note settings. So this is when something's going out. What do you want to actually have on that little note? Do you want to show the customer notes? You can put in the various fields. So basically whatever you want these fields to be and whatever you want to show on the note, you're configuring that out here. And similar to the packing slip settings. So again, the entire sales section, most all of this on the settings is really around really minute configurations that you might want to make that will change the overall look, feel, custom fields, those kind of things as well. And over on the purchase side, a lot to cover here, but really all of these pretty much mirror what we just covered with the exception of expenses. I do want to point out here, this is kind of where you can actually go and add your vehicles in. You can also set your default expense category around fuel and mileage, whether it's by kilometer or mile. And then Zoho has pre-populated the federal mileage guidelines basically going forward here. So as you can see, they've kind of been slowly creeping up and down depending on what year you're in. You can take a look at those, and these are the mileage rates you can put in. You can put your own in and its effective date there as well. And then we'll move down to reminders and notifications. Again, this is going to be on invoices. Do you want to send a reminder for overdue invoices? And if so, you can go ahead and edit the overall actions on there. You can change the to, the from. You can basically change the entire template that's going to go out on your reminder for overdue invoices. I do suggest you spend some time customizing this one part. This is something you're going to set to go out automatically in most cases. And oftentimes you've got a good percentage of the customers that are actually not going to pay their invoices on time. And this is where you're going to set that up, right? Payments as expected, reminder 1 after X number of days, 2 and 3. So you're going to want to go in and configure these reminders and edit these reminders and set the number of days that you want to have all of these reminders go out. So one of the most important sections in here on invoices is this reminders, because everybody wants to get paid, and this will help you there as well. And then on email notifications, there are a lot, and they all so every single, whether you're inviting someone to the portal, the customer portal invitation, the customer portal link, the vendor portal, timesheets, every single email, you can go in and you can edit it and show the content of the email, edit the overall email, make the changes to them. Again, it's laborious, but you do want to make sure that this is representing your company and that everything in here is very, very, very generic. And oftentimes it's kind of nice to spiff it up. Zoho has done a very, very nice job, though, on most of these where they've gone in and they've got it's very templated for you. So, if you look at the overall content here, they've done a nice job of templating it out, putting in your information, putting in all the company names. You can stick with them as they are, but I find most companies like to make some changes to these across the board. And moving a little deeper into settings here, we'll go into users and roles. Very, very straightforward. This is where you're going to set up all your various users and their roles in the organization. Zoho has made no change to this. I believe since the last time, all of the roles and responsibilities are pretty much the same. You've got, let me see if we'll look at the overall roles here. Admin, staff assigned for customers only, and timesheet staff. That is unchanged on the user side. So you basically go in, and the nice thing about this is you can just see what do they have access to. A lot of these are predefined. So if you create a new role, this is where you can kind of see what you're able to granularly allow users access to. Oftentimes you're going to want a user to be able to go in and see invoices, but you don't want them to see bank balances. You don't want them to see any of that information, just straight up, but maybe an invoice. And so you can kind of go in and set a very granular up. You can set up a role with no access to banking, only access to invoices, nothing around payments, estimates, any of those kind of things. So you can get very granular with your roles. And if you've got some outside users or some people internally that you do think need to have access to this, oftentimes people have this standalone. If you have Zoho Books and you have CRM, you can kind of push a lot of this information over into CRM, and people don't have to have access to books. They can see invoices, whether they're open, they've been paid, they're overdue. They can see that in the CRM without having to look over here. But if not, you can go ahead and set up a specific role and just give users access to what they need to see. And then on the user preferences side, really nothing here. This is just adding some new customer fields for that as well. And moving on down to customization. Zoho has tags. So perhaps, for products and vendors, you can set up various tags. So if you want to, have specific things that you can report on, this is where you will set up the specific tags you need. And these are really important when it comes to reporting and your ability to kind of granular report on certain things. John, refresh my memory here, but people that come over from QuickBooks, they'll get a little confused because Zoho uses tags and QuickBooks has its own methodology for this, which is different than tags, right?
Yes. So if you're familiar with QuickBooks, you probably guys are familiar with class. So with different transactions, you can set a class and then that way you can kind of report specifically on those. Reporting tags work a little differently. There is a little bit of a limitation built on it. There are 10 reporting tags that you can have at a time, but each of those reporting tags can have up to 500 options in them. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, but you really have to plan out how you're deciding to kind of build the reporting tags because it's not as free-flowing as the QuickBooks system. But again, just a little bit of preemptive thought and kind of creating your architecture for how you want to see that you can get around most limitations.
All right, and then you can go ahead and add web tabs. Web tab is nothing more than what it says. It's a web tab that shows up inside Books. So basically you want to pull in something outside, but you want it to show up on the Books main menu. You can go ahead and create a web tab here as well. On your transaction number series, if you want to enable multiple transactions, you can go ahead and do that. And when you go ahead and enable your number series, this is where you can go ahead and you can set it up. So vendor credits, retainer credits, and you're basically going to go through and you're going to set up your prefixes and your starting numbers and go ahead and set all of that up and customize that as you would like. And then all of your PDF templates. This is a huge one. There are certain things where, you kind of want to move these. You really don't want to have to dig for these, but these are all your templates. So do you have your various invoice templates? You can create new invoice templates, but you maybe want to have different templates for different customers, different layouts for different products and services. And this is where you're going to go in and you can go ahead. One of the nice things is though, you can in fact clone these and you can clone it as an invoice and then modify it. So you don't have to start from scratch, but very detailed. And this is where all of your templates live for estimates and sales orders and packing slips and shipments and invoices and credit notes. So this is an area where you will probably spend some time customizing your invoices, estimates, so that they look the way you want them to look. And moving on to another massive section here, online payments. We've got customer payments and how do you want to accept your customer payments. So you've got your credit card and debit. You're going to set up Stripe.
One thing new here on the Stripe integration, before you had to integrate with Plaid in order to collect the ACH payments with the instant verification. Now they're offering instant verification through Stripe itself, and it seems like Zoho is pushing that. Once you click on that one, actually the Plaid integration goes away. That was a whole setup in itself of where you had to create a Plaid account, get verified with them. And now if you're verified with Stripe, you can just go ahead and use their instant verification process for the ACH payments.
I will say Stripe, they have many gateways. They kind of hide the gateways. I just had to click a button here to show all of the other gateways. They really push you into Stripe. It does work exceptionally well. It's 2.9%, 30 cents transaction. ACH, I want to say, is a very small fee, around 50 cents transaction and maybe half a point. But you will probably want to set up your Stripe gateway. And once you're in there, you can enable both credit cards and debit cards and ACH as well. And again, there are other gateways for ACH, Forte and Authorize.net. On the credit card, you have a ton of gateways. WePay, Forte, Square, Braintree, and to check out. Authorize.net. This is if you are using if you've got a merchant account from, anywhere else. Usually it will integrate with Authorize.net. Very rarely have I found anybody who has a credit card transaction provider or merchant account that they're working with where it doesn't integrate with Authorize.net. So if in doubt, this is kind of one of your better places to go. PayPal. Oftentimes you'll want to accept payments through PayPal. So again, this is setting up your overall PayPal account. And then you have other types of customer payments you can use as well. very rarely do we see any of these in use. Normally it's going to be PayPal, credit card, debit card, and ACH. John, do you see much for Ideal, GiroPay?
Those are actually brand new. So those kind of fall underneath the PayPal integration. Those are some other different ones that they
Stripe.
have. I think they brought them in for the global editions, and then they're now accepting them with the US version here. The very other nice thing about these integrations is once you set these up, Zoho does a great job of automating a lot of the invoice and payment process. It also creates a separate bank account for the clearing account. So when you have money come into Stripe, it's going in the clearing account. It's taking care of the bank fees that they're charging you. It's going ahead and showing the transfers into your bank account. So when we do those bank reconciliations and categorizing transactions, you can just match to the already created transactions that the automation created.
And so, John, for vendor payments, since you're here, you can automate these vendor payments using Forte now?
Yeah, so if you want to pay your vendors through ACH, you can set up the auto payment through Forte. If you didn't want to use a check or to credit card, you can just automatically on the actual transaction, which I'll show on the purchase order side of things when we go through that. There's a record payment, and it's just to pay them directly through Forte.
Yeah. All right. And then moving on to automation, this is where you get into a lot of power. This is where you can build out your workflow rules. Not going to spend much time here, but think of it as when this happens, then a variety of other things are going to happen. This is using custom functions and webhooks, email alerts, and basically this is where you hire Zenatta most of the time to come in and write these workflow rules for you. And then this is where the actions and workflow logs and schedules are all kept. We're not going to spend much time on there. It's more technical, but we're happy to help you with any of those automations that you may need. And then on the integration side, they have a lot of integrations. The big ones are oftentimes around shipping. After ship is one that we like a lot. You can also do a UPS integration and a United States Postal Service integration. We also like Easy Post. So for shipping, you've got some built-in out-of-the-gate integrations here that work exceptionally well. Shopping carts, you can enable, if you're going to enable online sales, you can do so. And this will then, you have to also configure your tax settings. So going to kind of leave that out. The whole shopping cart thing is a whole different thing. Most of the time, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do it around e-commerce. And if you're going to enable that, you're going to enable your online sales and e-commerce. And then this is where you're going to have Amazon and Fulfilled by Amazon, Etsy, and eBay. Zoho has already built the integrations for those out of the gate. Another big one is your SMS integrations. Zoho works with Twilio on this. That is the only one supported by Zoho Books. Oftentimes, we'll get around this if you're using something like SMS Magic or one of the other Smooth Messenger, the other SMS products that are out there. Something happens in Books, we know to put it in CRM, and then the SMS gets sent out of CRM if you don't want to go and get yet another SMS. But if you do want to do SMS directly out of Books, you can do it using Twilio. And this is where you also integrate all of your other Zoho apps, CRM being the big one, projects, of course, for time tracking. But this is where you will integrate all of your Zoho apps as well. And then for 1099 filing, Zoho integrates with Tax 1099 and Yearly. So any of those two integrations will work for you as well. And then they have some other apps that they're supporting and some big ones here. So Slack integration, Square integration, Avalara, which we discussed before. Sure Payroll is the only, besides Zoho Payroll, it's the only payroll integration they have. And Sure Payroll is a paychecks company. This works exceptionally well. So if you've got a small company of under 100 people, it's about $5 per person per month. You can run your payroll through Sure Payroll. And basically that general ledger entry will automatically get imported and written into Zoho Books. And that kind of covers integrations. Moving on to the developer space. Again, this kind of ties into a lot of the automation here. So if you are doing some deep integrations, this is where you will find your webhooks, your connections, your API usage, your signals, your data backup. And then last but not least, you can go ahead and build out custom modules. So if you want to have any custom modules inside of the CRM, you can add them here as well. These are modules that are tracking information that is not necessarily normally tracked inside of Zoho Books. So John, before I move on to chart of accounts, did I leave anything out in that review of settings that you think we should talk about?
No, I think you did a great job covering everything there. There's a lot of granular options, as Brett mentioned. We do suggest taking a look at a lot of those different customizations you can make and tweaking them to kind of be your own. A lot of those templates, though, you may never use. So if you are not sending out, you're a service-based business and you don't send out any type of packaging slips, then you don't need to configure those. You can just leave those. So just kind of go through, see what they have, and pick and choose the ones that you're using.
All right, perfect. With that, John, let me jump right into the chart of accounts. On the main menu bar here under Accountant, you will see Chart of Accounts. What is a chart of accounts, you ask? Well, this is how you basically categorize all of your income and all of your expenses and all of your assets. Zoho, out of the gate, basically sets you up with pretty much most of the things that you will need for income and expense and cost of goods and other assets. They're all here. If they have a gear next to them, you'll notice that those are the ones that they'll allow you to delete or remove from their preset chart of accounts. If they don't have a gear, you'll notice they've got a little lock next to them, and that means that that's it. They're there. Whether you use them or not, whether you like them, you're stuck with them. So you basically, you have to, these are the base ones that come with the system. And for the most part, you're stuck with them. But a lot of them, the key ones that you really care about, and most of those are all around income and assets. The key ones you really, really care about are when you get to expenses. A lot of people really want to get detailed on customizing their expenses.
One thing to note is the lock as well indicates that it is a system provided account. So if you are utilizing bank fees and charges on the payments that you're accepting, it's going to automatically go into this bank fees and charges account. Same thing as what we discussed earlier with the preferences around your prepaid expenses and your deferred revenue. Those are locked accounts and those are system accounts. So if you can change the names of these to better suit what you're doing, the unearned revenue there. But just know that if you want to utilize it as it is, that these are the locked accounts that are for those specific types of items here.
But the ability to change the name is nice, but it is, like you say, going to be locked into that specific thing, right? So you're kind of stuck with that, which is fine, I think, for the most case. Honestly, I don't know, John, you do this a heck of a lot more than I do these days, but most of the time where people like to go crazy is all around expenses and kind of customizing their expenses. And it was funny, when you came in and you took a look at our books, you're like, way too granular. Let's just keep this high level, right? And kind of bundle everything together. So I think everybody has their own theory about setting up chart of accounts and how things should be categorized. I noticed that, we've kind of taken, or you've taken the approach, correct me if I'm wrong here, that simpler is better as far as tying it together. Would you say that that's kind of your philosophy?
That's my philosophy. I mean, a lot of these, if you wanted to go more granular, you can, like you said, but a lot of things can be kind of rolled up together and it just makes it easier to look at. You're not looking at 5 pages of profit and loss. You can look at, a 1 or 2 page one and still get a very good idea of the health of your company fiscally.
And you can also go ahead and you can set up a new account. So again, this is where you are going to go ahead and choose, what do I have here? I've got an expense. And then you're going to give that expense a name. You also have the ability to make it a sub account. So if I was to go to automobile expenses here, and maybe I want to set up a separate expense called gas, because I want to track that separately, you could do that. You can give it an account code. That's optional if you want to give it a general ledger code or not. You can give it a little description. You can add it to your dashboard, which is on the home page of Zoho Books. And then when you save that, it's going to save it. Now, one of the things here, if I go down to expenses, you'll kind of see when I get to automobile expenses here, it has now made a little sub account. So this is kind of showing you the sub account. So maybe you didn't want to track automobile expenses all by itself, but you wanted to track gasoline, you wanted to track maintenance, whatever cost you may want to put in there, you can go ahead and break those down separately. So you've got the big expense. You can always change those as well, but you also can have the subcategories. It's a fairly straightforward process, and you can get lost in here for hours. It's up to you, but your time is valuable. So keep it simple. Anyway, with that, John, I'm going to wrap up chart of accounts and turn it over to you, and we'll go through the sales process.
So starting off in the sales process, we kind of went over customers. All of these different preferences here, if you use them in your company, you can keep them, kind of like Brett went over. You can also take them out by going to the settings, and you don't do estimates. You don't have to show them on the left side here. So anything that your company does, you can add in and kind of take out as needed. Starting with the estimates here, when you have no transactions in your system, it's really nice. They give you a flow chart here of how it all works. And we suggest that you kind of take a screenshot of this so you have this for yourself, because as soon as you create a new estimate, it's going to disappear. And they give you a little rundown here, which is really nice for new users. When we go into create an estimate, one thing that's new here that they added is the ability to go ahead and create a retainer invoice if you're using retainer invoices based off the accepted invoices. So if we come in here and create, an estimate here for an item, and they need to put a deposit down for your business, you can tell them, hey, we want 25% down. So as soon as this estimate is accepted, it's going to go ahead and create that retainer invoice for you. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this as sent. You'll see that you can convert the estimate. You can create a project based off the estimate. You get a lot of options here. Say you created the estimate, now you have to go and make a purchase order. You can convert it to a sales order then and move on to the purchase order. So a lot of powerful things based off of just the estimate. Accepted. So again, we wanted to create a retainer invoice, so it's going to create that for you here. The nice thing is it's going to join everything at the top for you. So, hey, this is a $100 estimate. The retainer is now created. It's for the $25. It comes in as a draft, so they don't come sent out right away, but you can kind of review that. Say you wanted to change something on there. Hey, it's 25% down plus a one-time fee of something. You can add that into the retainer invoice. Now that the estimate has been created, we're going to go ahead and convert that to a sales order. Like I mentioned, that's just the next step. Like I said, if you don't use sales orders, you don't have to use them. This is just an option to kind of create that flow easily for you. In the sales order itself, as Brett showed before, you have the automatic numbering. You wanted to add a manual each time, you can do that as well. When you convert it, it automatically pulls in your estimate reference number here. It defaults to the date that you're creating it on. If you have a expected shipment date for that, you can dump that in here. All those custom fields that you are options here kind of will show up here as well. So if you wanted to add anything here, internal notes, you can either show it on the actual PDF of the document or leave it for internal information only. It's going to pull in anything that was on an estimate. And then, like I said, if you needed to add anything, say there's going to be shipping charges that are added to this or some type of adjustment, maybe we're going to give them a discount. We can give that on the line item level here. You can also give discounts on the invoice level if you'd like to. This, like I said, if you needed to add something in here as well, they have a change order. You can add that to the sales order here. The nice thing is if there is a contact on the account, you can checkbox that. And so when you go to save and send, it's going to automatically pull that in for you, give you the templated email that you've set up previously, and then you can send that out to your clients right away. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this as confirmed. From there, we can create a package if you're ready to send that out, or we can also go ahead and make a direct shipment if you want to just have it shipped, or create an instant invoice where it's just going to create an invoice for you directly. The nice thing about Zoho is that it's going to kind of keep everything linked together for you. So if we're going to create a package for this, go ahead and put our packing slip in there. Let's call it packing slip number 1. We're going to put what we're sending, save that, and that will create your package. And it's going to tell you, hey, this hasn't been shipped yet. It's just been packed. Moving from there, if we wanted to go ahead and ship that, we're going to go and do that manually. Or as Brett showed before, you can use that integration there to ship it through that integration. We're going to call this shipment 1. You can put in your tracking URL, tracking number, the shipping charges. So as you saw before, you can either pre-populate that, or if there's additional shipping charges that you're not charging them for, you can track that here to see what that is. If you are doing this on the back end, you can say, hey, we've already had this been delivered, put the time on here. You can send the notifications. Again, this is that templated email you set up before to let your customers know that, hey, this has been delivered. Carrier here. And again, it's nice because it keeps everything all together. Once the shipment's been created, it's really nice when you come back to sales orders, you're going to be able to see it's got this nice little option of where your kind of status is on the sales orders. So as we've packed and shipped that item already, we can see that here with these little status updates. And then we can easily find what we need to do. So, hey, this has been shipped. Now we want to invoice this. We can come in here, go ahead and convert this to an invoice. And the same thing is with the converting an estimate to a sales order. It's going to give you some options here. Again, if say you wanted to add something on here, hey, it was late by 3 days, so we're going to give you a $5 discount off your bill. You can do that. You can customize customer thank you notes. The default ones are set up in the settings. And if you needed to make any changes, you can do that. Down here, once a payment gateway is set up, then you can just check the boxes of however you want them to pay. Say it's a customer that you want a bank transfer because it's a larger amount and you don't want to pay the fees for the credit card. You can make it so they have to pay by ACH. Say it's a customer that only pays with PayPal. You can just set it to PayPal and not do Stripe. There's a lot of options around that. And again, same idea is you can go ahead and set a contact person and hit this save and send it to them automatically. Once it's an invoice, as we mentioned before, you can record a payment against it. This will mark it as sent. So you can either do that here or with the payment integration. This would be more for if you're receiving a check in the mail and you want it to go to your undeposited funds account and wait until that check clears into your bank account. Otherwise, the integrations with the payment integrations will do this portion for you. So they'll know, hey, it was paid through Stripe. The amount received was $215. There was a $1.50 bank charge on that transaction, and it will record that automatically. Once that's paid on the sales order, again, we'll see that, hey, this has been completed. So we see invoiced, payment, packed, and shipped. And some nice things here as well. Say you wanted to see, hey, everything that is for packaging, everything that is for shipping, you can kind of go up here to the different view options and see that. Another nice one is the shipped and not invoiced. So, hey, did we get paid for, that shipment we just sent out yesterday? Oh, you know what? We haven't even invoiced that. We can go ahead and check that in here. On all of the pages here, they give a nice view of where everything is in your process. So packages, you can see, hey, these are packages that are not shipped, delivered. You do not have to have it in that kind of view. You can go ahead and look at it in a list view. It's going to give you status updates on your views here. Same thing with shipments. It's going to tell you, hey, what's the status? Give you searchable items here. So every one of these views, you can kind of come in here and go ahead and do specific searches. Hey, I want to see what's been shipped. It's going to give you the record of everything that's been shipped. I know we kind of skipped through it by doing the sales order, but next process would be invoices. Say you do not want to do an estimate or sales order, you can just go in here and make a direct invoice, add a customer, add your items into here. They want 10 widget A's and do it this way as well. So if it's something that's been prepaid, you got to check. You can mark that you've received the payment already and go ahead and save those. There's just a lot of options on how to do things. Another nice thing too, as well, as if you are receiving checks in the process here, all of these things can be done through the banking as well. So as long as you have an invoice created and you accept a payment, you can go ahead and create those payments through the banking. I go over that, like I mentioned before, in that categorizing and bank reconciliation video that's on YouTube. Next thing here is our payments received. So we can see all the payments we've received as well as which invoices they're tied to. As I mentioned before, anytime you're in here, you can click on that and it's going to give you a link to the different steps that have been taken on this process here. Another cool feature is the recurring invoices. Say you're a service-based and you have a monthly bill that goes out, you can set up a recurring invoice for that customer. So, hey, they're always going to get widget A once a month for the next year. So we're going to go ahead and say that, hey, on October 11th of 2024, we're going to go ahead and stop that. It can expire then, or it can never expire depending on perpetual licenses, things like that. This is really cool because you basically set up the profile here, and then once that profile is created, going to create kind of a parent account that's going to hold all that information. And then anytime you create that, it's going to kind of keep track of it here. The nice thing as well is, as we saw before, you can decide whether you want this to be draft, you want it to be sent to them automatically. And then in the recurring as well, if you have their credit card info on record, you can actually go ahead and create it and charge it at the same time. So these invoices here are also stored in the invoice module. So you'll see now, hey, this is the child record. This is keeping track of those recurring invoices. This is just a way to easily kind of see all your recurring invoices that you have. Next thing on here is the sales return. As you know, if you're selling products, you might get a return here. Once you've created the receive, it may be that, it was user issue and you can issue either a credit note or refund it. Or if you want to, and it's their fault, you don't have to give them a credit based off of your terms and conditions. So this is just a process to have those returns. Once you have a receive, you can create, like I said, the credit note. Credit notes can be applied directly to invoices, or they can be just left on the account. Say they're a good client and, they're going to be ordering from you in the next week. You can use that credit note then as a way to prepay your invoices. Next up, we'll go over the purchasing process. It's very similar here to the sales process, and we'll go over that. So again, just like the sales process, we have our kind of the purchase orders, receives, bills, payments made, recurring bills, and vendor credits. So like I mentioned before, if it's your first time in here, you'll see that it provides the flow chart to you guys of how this all works. So raise a purchase order, receive the goods, convert it to a bill, record the payment. I believe we have a video on the inventory section that kind of shows you what happens in the process of how it becomes a good, and whether it's going to be in your inventory asset or on your cost of goods sold. So the purchase order, when you receive goods, is going to be your physical inventory. And then when you bill something and the bill is paid, that's when it's going to become a accounting inventory here. So we'll go ahead and walk through this again. Same idea, you select a vendor rather than a customer, come down, create an item, want 20 widgets. If they give you a discount up front, you can add that into here. The same thing with any types of adjustments. And the same idea with the sales orders. If you have a contact person for that vendor, you can go ahead and click this and have that email that person directly. Hey, we want to do this. I know some of the larger companies, they may have their own platform that they want you to use. So essentially what you would do is just kind of create the purchase order in here so that you can follow along with their process on your end. So, hey, we can mark this purchase order as being sent. We can create a receipt for that. If they bill you up front, you can convert the purchase order to a bill so that you can make your payment on that. So, hey, we prepaid this, so I'm going to save this as open and then record my payment. What we talked about before, the pay via ACH, this is the Forte integration that you set up. So you can pay them via the ACH or the check payment here. Once a bill's been created, you will record the payment here. It's going to mark your bill as paid. it's going to show up here as well. So you can either go to the bill itself and create one, or come over to the payment made section and create a payment for a vendor. If we go to that vendor itself, you'll see that it's going to show you any open bills that you have for your vendor there. So you can go ahead, if say you have multiple POs and you want to pay them all at once, you have a net 30 term with your vendor, it'll show all of the open POs here and bills, and you can go ahead and make payments on those. Same with the recurring invoices. We have recurring bills on the other side here. If you wanted to create a bill so that you know your rent is due every month and I need to send a check to that company, we can go ahead and set up a recurring bill here for that landlord here. So this could be rent month on the 1st. And we can go ahead and set that up. You do not have to select an item here, especially on the bill side of things. If it's a one-time thing, like you can just write rent, this account, and it will not create an item in your system. It'll just be a one-time thing here. So if it's $1,500 for rent, we can set that up, save that. And then now that it's created, we can have it create the bill. And record that payment. Or the other nice thing as well is we can go ahead and pay via check. We need to add a bank account in order to do that, but it's pretty nifty that it'll show you on the bank feed here if you have any checks that need to be printed, but it'll also keep track of checks that are outstanding and have not been cashed. And then the same idea with vendor credits. If you need to return a product or say something was damaged when you got it, you can create a vendor credit and have that applied to your future bills, or if they send you money back, you can record that refund. Again, the nice thing is on any of these settings, it's going to show you the status of where everything is. So if we look at bills, we can say, hey, these are open. And again, we can get pretty granular with the different views that you have here. So that's about it here on the purchasing side of things. The one thing I didn't really go over was expenses. This is really just tied into your bank feed. And as you pay things, you'll be categorizing your expenses. If you work with Zoho Expense here, it will automatically feed into here and categorize things for you.
Fantastic job there, John. Man, do we go long on this one? So much to cover. It is crazy. I think we're going to end up at an hour and a half or something here, but it was well worth it. So bottom line, guys, Zoho Books, a fantastic application. It works, I would say, for most businesses. It's a great option if you're looking at something for your books. We talked about it earlier, but if you head over to Zenatta.com, you click on resources, click on books, you can see all of the videos, all of the articles, all of the PDFs, everything we've ever put together on that. And if you want to talk with John to get some help, you can head on the finance side and click book a meeting. And next thing you know, you will be talking face-to-face with John. He can talk to you about your Zoho Books needs. John, thanks so much for doing this week.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be here.
And if you not only want to talk to John, I told you how to do that, but if you want to talk to anybody over at Zenatta just about Zoho in general, you can head over to the homepage and click on book a meeting, and we will be happy to talk with you. Also, I've mentioned this a couple times, but don't forget to go to Zenatta.com/resources. That's where we have our resources on every single Zoho product, every video, every article, every PDF. They're all categorized there. You can go to YouTube and look for them there. You can go to the resource library and they're all categorized for you there. And if you are just wanting to know what's going on in the world of Zoho, well, you should subscribe to our newsletter. If you go to Zenatta.com/newsletter, you can subscribe. You can also read all of the newsletters. It basically is a summary of the CRM Zen Show, which Tyler and I do every single Friday, and that's where we cover everything that happened last week in the world of Zoho. But the newsletter has so much more because there's only so many articles we can cover. So if you want to get the newsletter, it'll be not only everything we talked about there, but all of the other stuff we didn't get time to talk about. Hey, are you looking for a good community where you can talk about Zoho? We've got you covered there too. Head over to clubzenatta.com. It's like Club Penguin, but for adults, and it talks about Zoho. It has nothing to do with Disney. Anyway, you can head over to Club Zenatta. That is our community. You can ask questions for our show that we do called Azaz, which is Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. You can interact with other Zoho users. Over 1,000 people in that community, lots of engagement, and I'd be surprised if you wouldn't find what you're looking for over at Club Zenatta. So please head over there. It's free. All we ask for is your email so that we know that you are you. And are you looking to train your team? Looking to train your company? Well, we have got team training programs that are set up. They're not individual courses. You buy them and they're good for every single person in your organization. Doesn't matter if you've got 5 people or 500. You can put them all through our training courses. We've got them on CRM. We have them on projects. We have them now coming out on Zoho Desk, and our full one on marketing is going to be coming out soon. And I think, John, in 2024, you're rolling out a finance training program. So we got that coming out as well. So go ahead and go over to zenatta.com/training and check out all of our training programs. And if that's not enough, please, if you're a LinkedIn user, follow us on LinkedIn. If you're on Facebook, follow us on Facebook. If you're over on X, follow us on X. I noticed we need to change our logo there from the little Twitter bird to a little X. Follow us over on X. And as always, YouTube, that's where everything happens. So please subscribe to us on YouTube. Click that little bell to get reminders. We're putting videos out 4 or 5 times a week over there. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.